I now introduce Lesson 26, Introduction to the Verbal Stems, and particularly the nifal stem. The basic form of any Hebrew word is the root, or more technically the lexical morpheme, which is a sequence, usually 3 consonants, consistently found in words having related meanings. A verb form, as we have seen, is a combination of this lexical root and modifying affixes, either suffixes, prefixes, or infixes. All the verbs studied so far belong to the basic verbal system called the cal. In dictionaries, the cal perfect tense, third masculine singular form of the verb is usually used to represent the basic lexical form of the root. The lexical root may be further divided by other prefixes and vocalization patterns, and these modifications are called verbal stems or themes. Hebrew has 7 major verbal stems that fall into 3 basic groups. Group 1 will be the cal and the nifal. Group 2 will be the pl, the pual, and the hithpael. Group 3 will be the hifil and the hafal. The word cal in Hebrew means light, and so the basic stem is the cal. The other stems are mnemonic devices based on changes of the traditional verb that they took pa'al, which means to do or make, and they made that into the end stem, and so that became a nifal, and if you made it into the pl or the double stem, it became a pl, and so on and so forth. But all this, the p's in all these forms and the l's in all these forms are based on this particular standard verb, pa'al. The problem with the standard verb, though, is it has a guttural in the middle that creates certain problems. But nonetheless, that's where the traditional names come from. But this grammar uses pakad as the paradigm model verb instead. But anyway, the various verbal forms will all kind of modify the meaning, maybe just to anticipate what's going to happen. Cal is the basic stem. A verb in the nifal will be either passive or reflexive of cal. PL will take a meaning in cal and multiply the action, so that if you do an action in cal, you'll do it repeatedly in PL. Pual will be the passive of PL. Hithpael will be the reflexive of PL. Hifil is a causative form that if you do something in cal, you will cause it to happen if you make it a hifil. And the hafal will be the passive of hifil. So in the weeks to come, we will be introducing all the other verbal forms. Nifal today, PL in the next lesson, and pual in lesson 28. And then in second semester, we'll introduce the other 3. But the important thing at this point is to learn the one new one, which will be the nifal. The characteristic of the nifal is a prefix nun, though confusingly, the prefix nun will assimilate in forms like the imperfect. So if you take the paradigm verb pakad, then nifkad would be the perfect form, third masculine singular of pakad. And if pakad means to appoint, nifkad could mean he was appointed, or he appointed himself, or he appointed for himself. We'll get into meanings here shortly. The imperfect is a yif paked, where you have a doubling of the first consonant. Well, that's actually, if if you looked under a microscope at that pay, what you would really find in that dot is a assimilated noon that has combined with the pay. So yif paked, and that would mean he will be appointed, or he will appoint for himself, or similar. And then you have the vav consecutive form, which is the same as the imperfect form with a vav and a patah and a double. The jussive form in the case of a strong verb is identical with a imperfect form. And so let him be appointed or similar would be the jussive meaning. You can do coordinatives. You get a couple of different spellings of it here, either with a hirik or with a segol, but nonetheless it means the same thing. I'll just take the hirik form, ip pakada, let me be appointed, or the like. And then hipaked would be the imperative, you be appointed, or you appoint yourself. And then nifkad is the participle. Notice the participle is the same as the perfect, except with the perfect you get a short a vowel. With the participle you get a long a vowel, a kamatz. So nifkad, if I were to make a distinction in pronunciation, I'd pronounce this nifkad, as and had, but I'd pronounce this one nifkad, as and father. Normally I don't distinguish them, however, but anyway, nifkad would be the participle, one who is appointed or who appoints himself. And then the infinitive construct is hifaked, which happens to be the same as the imperative form. And then the infinitive absolute, there's two versions of it, one with a hey, hifakod with a holem vav instead of a sere, otherwise it's like the infinitive construct, or a form with the noon prefix, nifkod with the holem vav, as you find the holem vav in the cal perfect infinitive absolute. So those are the forms of the nifal. So Ross now gives you the paradigm of the strong verb using pakad as his example. So nifkad, he was appointed. Nifkada, she was appointed. Nifkadta, you were appointed, and so on and so forth. And then he gives the imperfect form, nifaked, and again in the imperfects you're going to get a doubling of the first consonant, the assimilated noon of the nifal, and then typically an e vowel, although in some cases the e vowel may reduce to shava. The prefixes of the imperfect are the same as in the cal, and the suffixes are the same as the cal. It's the stuff in the middle that is vocalized differently. The same thing, by the way, is true for the perfect. The endings on the perfects, the and the ta and the t and the u and the tim and the tin and the nu, those are all the same. By the way, I should have noted on the third feminine singular, nifkada, that's the same as the nifal coordinative, the cal coordinative first common plural. So this particular form, nifkada, could be interpreted as a nifal, she was appointed, but it could be a coordinative in the cal, let us appoint. So there's an ambiguity, a synonym between the two forms there. The preterite form with a vav consecutive, again, is the same as the cal imperfect plus a vav and a double. The adjussive is no different than the cal imperfect for the strong verb. We've looked at the coordinatives already. The imperatives are formed by taking if you take a second masculine singular and you drop the T, you get a ipakade, no consonant. So they bring back a hey for the vowel to hang on. So instead of getting ipakade, I guess you could have had an olive, but that'd be confusable with first common singular imperfects. So you put a hey in there instead, pakade, and here you have the other forms where you make it feminine singular, ipakadi, telling her be appointed, telling you be appointed, you lady be appointed, and the other forms you'll see here. The participle, you can also do those forms, and so you get a nifkada, which is very close to the nifal perfect, third feminine singular. The vowels are a little different here. Nifaka versus the participle, which is nifkada with a full-fledged vowel there. Otherwise, it would be the same form. And then you see the masculine plural, feminine plural of the participle. And then you have the infinitive form, which is also the same as the infinitive construct form, which is the same as the imperative, and then the two infinitive absolutes that we've already mentioned. Well, how do you translate a nifal? The nifal most commonly represents passive voice of cal, but it may also convey a reflexive or reciprocal meaning. With some verbs, the meaning of the nifal depends on the context. With other verbs, only one of these nifal meanings will be used no matter what the context is. So if you have a form, it could be passive. So if you have Rash Hisat, in the nifal, it could mean, Nid Rash could mean he was sought. Makar in the cal means he sold. In the nifal, Nimkar, and by the way, the dog A should be a Hirik underneath, is he sold himself if you make it reflexive. And then Ra'u, they saw. In the nifal, if it's reciprocal, it could be Nir'u, they saw each other. Though it could also mean they were seen, they were even visible. Frequently, the relationship between the cal meaning and the nifal meaning is difficult to determine if the word does not occur in cal, or if the nifal has a developed meaning. And Hebrew dictionaries will list the meanings of the verb according to the various stems in which they occur. But if no cal exists for a particular verb, the dictionaries will then give the meaning of the root in the nifal. So if you have a root lakem, and perhaps here it might be useful to go to Brown Driver Briggs. If you go to the Brown Driver Briggs dictionary, you'll have lacham will be the dictionary form, so it's put in brackets. And the reason that it's put in brackets is because when you look down, well, the cal meaning does occur, and it puts a little dagger thing here. The little dagger thing indicates that in the cal, the passages listed here are the only places where the cal form occurs. There are very few, but then it has the nifal form and indicates that the nifal form occurs 167 times in the Hebrew Bible. And then it'll list the meaning of the nifal form. One of the basic meanings is to fight or to engage in battle, sometimes to wage